Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is honored to be presented again this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Celebrating 50 years of service in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama, the Townsend family of dealerships has been a locally owned company built on service and connection with its customers. At Townsend Honda, with new cars in short supply, they've purchased more than 200 quality pre-owned vehicles. And every one of them goes through a 118-point inspection before it's offered for sale to you. Most of those vehicles are either Honda Certified Pre-Owned or Townsend Certified Pre-Owned, and the dealership also has a fully staffed parts and service department to assist you beyond the purchase day throughout the life of your vehicle. That includes Saturday service, which is available until 1 p.m., even during football season. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Honda salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. New Orleans restaurateur Ralph Brennan grew up in restaurants. Part of a storied New Orleans family, the restaurant group he helms today owns multiple spots, including Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen located at the Disneyland Resort. But to me, the crowning jewel of this group is Brennan's, a restaurant in the French Quarter opened in 1946 that still celebrates the pageantry of eating out in its breathtaking and iconic spaces. From a pink and green dining room to elegant private rooms to a courtyard plucked out of a tropical dream. Mr. Ralph, as he's affectionately known in the restaurant, is past president and chairman of the National Restaurant Association and has presided locally over both the Louisiana and the New Orleans associations as well. He's a people person who excels at staying curious while still keeping New Orleans restaurant traditions alive. If you love brunch or bananas Foster, you have Brennan's to thank for it. But the dining rooms have even more stories to tell. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm here too. I'm in the inner sanctum of Brennan's in New Orleans, Louisiana, Southern Fork listeners. And if you ever wanted to know how to decorate your office, Mr. Ralph can probably help you. So it's pretty amazing in here.
Well, it's a beautiful building. It's been around since 1795.
Wow.
And about 9 years ago, we bought it, and we closed it for 16 months and did a renovation. And it was, for me, a labor of love because this is where I grew up as a child and spent many, many a day here and then worked all the way through college here at the restaurant.
What were some of your jobs? I know you weren't super a line cook.
No, my first job was a prep cook. And I, for one summer, boned chickens and peeled shrimp. And finally, my aunt promoted me just at the end of the summer, to the line, and I learned how to make hollandaise sauce and poach eggs. for eggs Benedicts and eggs Hussard.
That is honestly a serious life skill right there. If you can make eggs and hollandaise sauce, you're already invited to parties, right?
Yeah. Well, my mother was very impressed when I went home one day and I made the poached eggs for her and I made the hollandaise sauce. And she'd never seen me do that. A new talent.
Do you still whip it up occasionally? Not
really. I don't cook very much at home.
Well, you don't have to. You can just go into any of your restaurants and say, this is what I would like.
Well, we can. And, we often go out and check out other restaurants around town. And when we travel, check out a lot of restaurants. So when I'm home, my wife and I just take it easy. Lots of salads.
Yeah.
Very simple things because it's our home. And, we like I said, we do so much of it when we're traveling or when we're in town and go to the different restaurants. And New Orleans is such a vibrant restaurant city. And we have a lot of new openings all the time. So we're constantly looking at new restaurants.
That is exactly where I want to really begin our in-depth conversation. And that's the idea of the long-term fine dining restaurant. A lot of the United States, the idea of a restaurant culture is newer. It's post-World War II. And here in New Orleans and some other bigger port cities like New York, the restaurants have been around for 100 years, and there's a difference to the diner and there's a difference to a restaurant culture. Would you be willing to dive in and explain a little bit what a restaurant culture means when you talk about it when it's New Orleans? Because this is like I said, an epicenter of that.
Well, I think what I would tell you first is that New Orleans really has a culture of food. That's what we do. They joke about us that, in the morning we think about where we're going to have lunch. At lunch, we're thinking about where we're going to have dinner. And at dinner, where we're going to have breakfast the next morning. I mean, food plays such an integral role in our lifestyle here, along with the music and the art and history and the culture that's here. And so I think that makes us different because we're so passionate about food. Lots of home cooks. And the thing, you mentioned some of the longstanding restaurants like Brennan's, and then there would be Antoine's and Arnaud's Galtois and some other neighborhood restaurants. In 2015, we bought Napoleon House, which is a restaurant and bar around the corner, operated by the Impostata family for 101 years, and we bought it. I joked that they didn't have any successors. They ran out of children, but they wanted us to buy it, and we've left it alone. But again, a small kind of neighborhood bar in the French Quarter, and you see that all around the city. There's such a diverse group of restaurants around the city, from casual sandwich shops up to oyster bars and into neighborhood restaurants. But it's so ingrained in our culture. It's like I say, it's part of our lifestyle.
And we can hear a large bridal party having a great meal behind us in one of the private rooms here. And it is a gathering place. It's a celebratory place. And you were just telling us that this was the place where you learned how to celebrate Mardi Gras, right? And so I'd love for you, I know we were talking about it off mic, but will you repeat the story of your mom bringing you here?
I sure will. Mardi Gras also is an integral part of our culture here. And when we were young children, my brother and my two sisters and I, my mom used to bring us down here to Brennan's. We lived out near the lake, and she'd come bring us down here, and we'd have dinner and do our homework at one of the tables just off the balcony, because the parades came through the French Quarter at that time. And so we would go out on the balcony when it was time, catch the beads, come back inside. And then Mom always made us give the beads away to customers in the restaurant because many of them didn't understand that the parades were coming by outside and didn't understand the Mardi Gras culture. But for us growing up here, Mardi Gras is such an exciting time. And we're at the time of year right now where we're just starting to get into the Mardi Gras season. Things are starting to happen.
I mean, what? What? That's months from now.
It is months from now, but, there's been a lot of planning. There's, it's year-long planning for many of the different Mardi Gras organizations and parades. And we're starting to see now dinners here and there. And they will just grow in number because the organizations do different things, and members within the organizations do different things. And often those different things are food related. And so they're in our restaurants. And so.
Wow. When we're really talking about this idea of family and the idea that all the Brennans dress up as the same people, the same costume on Mardi Gras. And and your family history goes way back. One of the things that your Uncle Owen really helped galvanize was a celebration that I believe the millennials have embraced in a deep and definitive way, and that's the celebration of brunch.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this is one of the ground zeros of brunch.
Well, yes, and we actually call it breakfast because back in the day, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. It was a very lavish, multi-course breakfast and complemented by wines and spirits. Mm-hmm. It started around the corner.
Because breakfast is just breakfast, but when you add wine and spirits, it becomes brunch.
And it extends, from when I was young, we used to open at 8 in the morning. We open 9 now. And we go through, the afternoon and then reopen for dinner. But it's a very fun, festive time. And, we try to make it as much fun as we can. Mm-hmm. And it's what really helped my family get started in the industry. And they built a strong reputation on that. That has continued now.
I've had the wonderful opportunity to interview Jacques Pepin, and, he's known for his beautiful eggs, and you have to have beautiful eggs served here all the time, on the daily. How do you train the kitchen to do that? Because all of us know that a scrambled egg and a fried egg is fine, but we know the difference between a restaurant egg and a fine dining egg, right?
Yes. And it's the way it's prepared. It's the technique. The chef is the one responsible for making sure it's done correctly. And this business is all about little details. And that's what makes us different. It makes a lot of restaurants different, the way they execute those little details. And so in our case, we have some very talented people in the kitchen, and chefs and sous chefs. And then they teach and develop the cooks around them. One of the things that I've always tried to do as an operator is to build a strong core of staff members who are with you for many years. And that really makes it easier to operate because, one, they understand what you'd like, as far as, the guest experience and the culture of the restaurant. And if after they've done it long enough, they know how to do it very well.
Right.
And so we've worked very hard since I started many years ago at Mr. B's is to build that core and then, continue to supplement that core as people turn over. It's that group that really makes a restaurant successful because we're in a people business. That's what I tell everyone. It's customers and staff. That's what I do every day. I have a desk. I'm not there often because I'm trying to be out in the restaurants, talking with our guests, talking with our staff. Sorry, we were just interrupted by some little children. We're sitting in the Morphy room here. Paul Morphy, in the mid-1800s, his family lived here, and he was sort of a child prodigy chess master. And so we created this room around a chess theme. And I could tell when we walked in here, somebody had been playing with the chess pieces.
I know that generations of people, including your family, have really been at home here and celebrated here. But there's something that a lot of people really don't know about Brennan's unless they're deeply familiar with more of the dinner service. And that is your amazing wine collection, Mr. Ralph. Now, you're a wine man.
Yep.
And you lost a lot of it during Katrina, right?
Well, yes. Many of the restaurants in New Orleans lost their wine cellars because the power went out. And the temperatures rose, and they lost their wine cellars. Brennan's at the time, I wasn't involved, but it had a Wine Spectator Grand Award wine cellar. When we bought the restaurant in 2013 out of the bankruptcy, we developed a long-term plan. And one of those plans was to get the Grand Award back. Mm-hmm. I think we're probably one of the only restaurants in the country that's ever received it after they've lost it. But we worked very hard with our sommelier and beverage manager, Braith Tidwell, and then our general manager here, Christian Pendleton, and his team to build it back up. And it took us probably about 6 years to do it. It takes a lot of work and effort to see, the areas that we needed to add to the wine list to expand it. And then also lots of education of our staff so that they can guide the guests. When you have a book that has about 1,500 entries in it, 1,500 different wines, guests need some guidance.
They need a lot of guidance, and they need some time to look at it and decide what they're interested in. I know that in a city like New Orleans, land in space is of a premium because there's water all around us. And so I just think about the storage of these bottles and how this has to happen easily and accessibly, but also safely for a 1,500 bottle wine list that you can access within 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, even quicker than that now.
Yeah.
Because it's on property. And we have we call it a wine cellar, but with the water table here in New Orleans, you're not going to have a cellar. No one's going down. But it's actually an old carriage house at the back of our courtyard that was part of another piece of property that connected to this property. And I'm not sure when it was purchased and added to this property, but when I was a child, that wine cellar was there, and I used to play in there. And when we took over, we did some renovation to it. We added we were able to capture a little outdoor space that expanded the wine cellar. We put a dining room in there, so we have a wine dining room in there. And the most important thing I think that we did is we added a generator. When the storms come and the power goes out, and usually in the French Quarter it doesn't go out that long, we have a generator that kicks in. And actually last year with Hurricane Ida was the first time we tested it, and it worked.
And for Southern Fork listeners that might not be sitting in New Orleans on this November day, the reason you need a generator when the power goes out is because during hurricane season, it's still really hot.
It is really hot.
So those bottles will spoil and they will burst. And so it is about the idea of keeping the bottles cool.
Right, exactly.
And not keeping lights on for the special dinner. It's really climate control, because one of the downsides of a hurricane, and we've both been through multiple ones actually, is that when the power goes out after a while, you're not only without power, but you're also really sweaty.
Yes.
And so you do need some wine to kind of help you through.
Well, I joke about that. I've told them, I said, and I did not do it with Hurricane Ida last year, but I said, if my wife and I evacuate, we're going to the wine cellar because we'll have air conditioning, because it's air conditioned, and we'll have a corkscrew and a couple bottles of wine and enjoy it.
That's right.
Well, I say that as a joke, but you're absolutely right. New Orleans, many people who have been here and others know it's very humid here, and particularly in August, September.
Right.
It can be very, very humid. I just didn't want to lose the wine. It takes a long time to build that wine up. And then all of a sudden a storm can come through and you could lose it. And so that's why we did it. And as I said, it worked with Hurricane Ida. And I think it will continue to work in the future. We do actually have our emergency lights on there. So there's a little bit of lighting. And we have one of our coolers on there, food coolers. We found out we had some extra capacity, so we put the cooler on. That way we can save some of the food also.
Right. And as we continue with climate change and these things, I mean, we're dealing with the idea of hurricanes is an annual thing, not, an occasional thing. It's just like we need to be prepped. We need to know what we're doing. But Brennan's really is about this moment of, it's not the moment to try to have a sensible salad. It's also not the moment to decide that this is the first day of your dry January. Do not do that at Brennan's. You will be sad. But it's also the place where we always have to save room for dessert. And dessert is a process, it's a production, and it's about rum, sugar, bananas, and ice cream, right?
Butter.
I forgot about the butter. There's always butter. The family connection also connects to, was it United Fruit Company that became Chiquita? What was the company? No,
Standard Fruit Company.
Standard Fruit Company.
Was on my grandmother on my mother's side. So my mother's mother was Italian, Sicilian. She was in a large Italian family here. She was the youngest of the children. And her family, along with some of the other Italian families here, got involved in the produce industry and created a company called Standard Fruit Company. And they primarily imported bananas from Central America into the United States. And the port of New Orleans at the time was one of the largest, if not the largest, importer of bananas into the United States. And
then they bought ice companies to keep the bananas cool.
Sure.
And bananas.
And they had farms and plantations in Central America. And then they had storage facilities here. They had a rail system, and then they had ships, steamboats at the time, that would bring the bananas from Central America to here. My mother often went on that with my grandmother. They used to take trips to, the boats would stop in Cuba, in Havana, and Mom would do that. She told us great stories.
But Bananas Foster is really an iconic Southern dessert, and it's anchored here at Brennan's. And how many of these do you have numbers on how many of these you do a week, a month, a day?
We do, and I can't remember them, but it's a lot. I will tell you this. Of all the desserts we serve in this restaurant, almost 75% are Bananas Foster.
And all the servers have to know how to do it.
Yes, we teach the servers how to make a tableside. You know, tableside dining is something that you don't see very often, and we do that with that dish. And we have another dish that I grew up on that was my favorite, steak Diane. But it started with Bananas Foster, and all of the staff members are taught to do it tableside.
Yeah, and it involves flames.
Flames, yep.
It's very beautiful.
Just saute that butter and sugar and caramelize the sugar. Add a little banana liqueur. Cook the bananas down a little bit. And then, boom, flame it.
Flame it. And then pour it over ice cream.
Little ice cream, yep.
Yeah, and it's calorie-free.
It is calorie-free.
Because I just tested it, so I know it is calorie-free. But it's got to feel interesting for you because this is your home. This is what you've always grown up in. But for those people outside of New Orleans, the idea that there were more Sicilians in New Orleans than New York, and then you come from a very, Italian and Irish family. How do you mix that tradition with all of these New Orleans traditions too? Do you still honor that part of your heritage as well? We do.
But New Orleans is really a blend of a lot of different heritages. And the Sicilian population was part of that. Before that, many of the Irish came over here. We have a lot of Germans and different people from different countries. And the exciting thing to me that happened after Vietnam, and as that settled down and people began to leave Vietnam, many of them came here to New Orleans, and they've become an integral part of the food community here.
And they can grow a lot of the same things that they can grow in Vietnam.
Our climates are similar, and they also do a lot of fishing. They have a lot of the fishing boats that go offshore in the Gulf of Mexico and catch shrimp and other fish for us. So I'm saying that because the diversity of the cuisines here is just tremendous, and everyone has contributed their part over the years, and it makes it exciting. But it's being regenerated by, for example, Vietnamese, and then other cultures are moving in, and the blending is what makes it exciting to me.
And to have this place in the French Quarter as your office, when you're away from New Orleans, because I know you travel extensively when you have to, because why wouldn't you? But also you love food and wine, and so you've got to go do research. Research is an important thing. That's what I'm doing here. But when you come back, do you sometimes go, can't believe I live here? Or is there a building or a street or a time of day when you're walking where you just go, this is one of my favorite views?
Yes. I have more than one. And some of it's seasonal. I mean, I love Mardi Gras. And when you're standing, say, on St. Charles Avenue and the parades are coming down and you're looking at the floats and you're watching people yelling and screaming, and beads are being thrown and other trinkets are being thrown and people are catching it. And, everyone gets along great and everyone's a friend that day or through that season. I mean, that's a very special time. I think the French Quarter is just a very special place. When I walk around, my office is in the French Quarter. It's not because of a fire back in the early 1900s. My building is newer. It was built in 1930, but the restaurants are all from the mid-1800s or earlier. Brennan's is 1795. But you walk around and my grandmother, my mother's mother, had a phrase, if the walls could talk. When I come in Brennan's and I think about, the history in this building, Napoleon House the same way. The buildings there equally as old. And as I mentioned earlier, the Impostata family operated it for over 100 years. I just think about, what could these walls tell me?
Yeah.
And sometimes I will go either here at Brennan's. If it's been a rough day and it's kind of the end of the shift at night, just go grab a glass of wine and sit in the corner and just think about it. And it's one of the things that makes New Orleans special because there's so much history here.
And you can taste it on the plate at Brennan's.
You can taste it on a lot of plates.
That's right.
Around this town. because as I said, food's what we do. Yeah.
Well, you've stabilized, you've put this in, you have a place in Disneyland. There's a lot of cool new things, but it's also a tradition. So I have to ask you, what is making you hungry? You're always thinking forward and you're always percolating for that next idea. So can you give us a little hint about anything?
Yep. I don't want to grow stagnant.
Yeah.
My aunt taught me that. My Aunt Ella, who was very instrumental in this restaurant here, Brennan's, and in my family as a leader. She taught me one day that she always believed that if you were like on a bell curve, and if you stopped growing, you would go down on the other side of that curve. And so I've never lost that thought. And I think you need to be re-energized. And I need it personally. I think most people need it personally. And that then flows through into your businesses, because you can't do the same thing all the time forever. And you have to keep it fresh. You have to keep it exciting. And that's why I'm always looking for new ideas and pushing our team to do it. We try things, and sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we get some good ideas. But that to me is what the secret is to the long term. And I don't think it's just our business. I think it's many, many businesses. You have to keep, I don't know if reinventing yourself is the right word.
Maybe evolution?
Evolution, because it's not like you just stop one day and create a new concept. You just keep changing, you keep growing, learn new ideas. My favorite thing is dealing with you as a guest in our dining room, and dealing with our staff members who hopefully give you a great experience and make you happy. That's what it's all about. And what I love about this business is there's instant reward.
Right.
You don't even need to wait for some of the social media reviews. Guests are going to tell you right away if you've done a good job or not. And that to me is very rewarding. And every once in a while when we make a mistake and you have to deal with that, it's not fun, but if you handle it correctly, you can make a customer for life.
That's right. It's always an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So what is one aspect of this job that you were literally born into that really meshes with a natural piece of your own innate personality?
That's a tough question. Golly. I'm going to go back to what I said just a minute ago. It's people.
Yeah.
I mean, I really believe as what we are as people is we're gatherers. We want to be with other people. We want to have fun. We want to learn. We want to share family experiences, friends experiences. And that's what we get to do, is we get to create experiences for you. Many of our guests who come in are celebrating something. Anniversary, birthday, college graduation, things like that.
Wedding with lots of kids behind us.
Weddings with lots of kids. and so, we're creating this experience. It's, and that to me just is so rewarding, because people can get together. I remember after Katrina, when we were evacuated in Baton Rouge, and there was a particular coffee shop where a lot of people from New Orleans gathered because we had no information. And then somebody would be able to drive into New Orleans and come back and share information. My point is that, we want to be together as people. And restaurants are one way that you can gather and do that.
It is.
And so I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's a gathering place. So, quick fire. Is there anything keeping you up at night right now? This is your chance to say one thing.
No, I just, the world's keeping me up right now.
Yeah.
I wish they'd settle down a little bit. Calm down. Go to dinner with a friend. There's a lot of unrest right now. From our industry standpoint, staffing's a huge issue. We lost some people during COVID, and I'm not sure where they all are. But we're building back slowly, and one day we'll get back to where we were. But staffing's a huge issue.
Well, you've already fed me. It was a wonderful little snack time in a courtyard that is really honestly a courtyard of my dreams. I have to write it down. I can't talk about it because I don't have good editing, and I have to spend some time trying to explain how beautiful it is outside these windows that we're sitting next to. But part of the joy of this work is that I get to ask this last question of everybody that I interview. And it is the idea of a meal that can bring you life. In this question, I have a magic picnic basket. It's virtual. With it, I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody to make just one more bite of something that you really wish you could taste. I can source for you, and I can cook a little bit, although I'm much more country cooking. You know, I can make you some grits and some pound cake, but probably not oysters on the half shell as well as we just had. I don't even know how to pronounce that dish. Can you tell me what we just had? The oysters?
Gem. J'Aime.
Right. Okay. They were beautiful. So I would love to gather some things, using that term, to put in your basket. Doesn't have to go together. And I know it shifts and changes with the seasons, how hungry you are. And as food people, we always have something that we wish we could try one more of. So what are a few things I can put in your basket?
I'm very simple.
Okay.
Cheeseburger, fries, chocolate shake, and a great California Cabernet.
Nice. Are you a double patty smash burger? What's the cheeseburger?
Just about any cheeseburger. I prefer Swiss cheese. I've gotten into sweet potato fries now because my grandkids eat sweet potato fries. No, I'm very simple. If that's kind of the last meal, the staff around here joke because sometimes we'll serve burgers for staff meal and they'll come looking for me. And the other day they approached me about opening a restaurant not far from here. A little coffee shop closed, and they said, "Go put your hamburgers over there and your cheeseburgers and your shakes." I mean, I enjoy great meals and great restaurants, but it just to me, I'd rather have that cheeseburger but a great glass of wine with friends.
Well, if people want to learn more about Ralph Brennan and his family of restaurants, and I'll also tell you a little secret. He was out later than me last night, and he's about to go visit his grandkids for their birthday, grandchild for her birthday. So he's partying, throwing those beads on Mardi Gras and hanging out late at night. Love it. You can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there as well as images so you can see the face behind the voice as always. Even better, though, is coming to experience these places. And because of the work that I try to do, I want you to feel like you know somebody when you get here. And so if Mr. Ralph is here when you decide to come to Brennan's, I hope that you'll tell him, hey, and say, I feel like I know you. I heard you on the Southern Fork. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I know it's crazy and hard to schedule this.
No, well, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Great. Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. Brennan's actually embodies a lot of what really great restaurants are, including many of their tenets of service and reading the guests and really helping them have an experience. But one of the things that I really love about it is that idea of entertainment, of pageantry, of it being an experience. As you can probably guess, I eat out a lot and I love it. I think it's an experience and it's also just straight up entertainment. Not just because I like watching the movement in a dining room from a professional standpoint, but I love to be wowed tableside with bananas catching on fire. I mean, that sounds super fun, right? And Brennan's is really about that idea of entertainment and having a good time with great food and with friends. I do hear from some of my friends that aren't as involved in food culture as I am, and they will say, gosh, you have another 3-hour dinner tonight? I just don't know if I could take it. But to me, it is the evening. You dress up, you get ready, you might go to a place beforehand for a cocktail or a glass of wine, and then you roll into dinner. And it is the experience of the evening. And when you go to a place like Brennan's, it isn't about table turns. It isn't about how fast can I get the food to the table? Although you definitely want that to be a consideration as well. It is mainly about the experience, and it is just really entertaining to go to a restaurant like Brennan's because it is old school and they celebrate that. And I wanted to celebrate that with you. So I hope you get some celebratory times this season. And until then, I'll be right here next week. Have a great one. You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?